The red lights blinked across the massive screen like angry stars. Council member Jiwan watched each light with growing fear. Her scaled hands shook as she touched the control panel. Another ship had gone silent near the edge of space, where the spiral arm worlds lived. "Bad news again," said Minho, his long arms moving like angry snakes. He was the one who talked to all the different alien races and tried to keep peace between them. For 30 years, he had worked to build friendships across the galaxy. Now he watched it all fall apart. The Veiltharn Empire just said they don't want our peace treaty anymore. That makes 6 big groups who have walked away from us. The great round room was full of creatures from many worlds. Some had fur, others had scales, and some looked like walking plants. They all sat in their special chairs, but everyone could feel the worry in the air. The great peace had kept the galaxy safe for 300 years. Now it was ending. Dr. Hayok stood up from his chair made of crystal. He was the one who studied how different species lived and thought. For months, he had been reading about every peaceful group in the galaxy's history. His face looked tired and sad. "I finished studying all the peaceful species we know about," he said slowly. "Every single one of them ended up going to war. Every one except—" He stopped talking and pressed a button. A picture appeared in the air above them. It showed a beautiful planet with blue water and green land spinning around. A yellow sun. The planet looked perfect and clean. "What is that place?" Juan asked. "It's a world where we could make the perfect peaceful species," Hayok said. "A group of beings who could help when fighting starts, ones who could keep peace when we can't. Do it ourselves." Everyone in the room became very quiet. What Hayok was talking about had never been done before. No one had ever tried to create a whole new species. The oldest member of the council was Elder Sunmi. She had lived for over 1,000 years and had seen many wars and many times of peace. Her voice was soft but strong when she spoke. "Take the peace we have now is already dying. If we do nothing, the whole galaxy will burn in the next 100 years." She looked at every person in the room. "We are supposed to protect peace in the galaxy. If we have to become creators to save it, then that's what we must do." The other council members began to talk among themselves. Some thought it was too dangerous. Others worried about what would happen if they failed. But everyone knew that something had to be done. Minho's tentacles moved as he thought. How would we even do such a thing? Creating a new species sounds impossible. "Not impossible," said Dr. Hayok. "Difficult, yes, but not impossible. We would need to find the right planet, the right conditions, and then guide evolution very carefully. Over many thousands of years." "And what kind of species would we create?" asked another council member. "One that naturally chooses peace over war? One that can understand different ways of thinking? One that can bring enemies together and help?" "Then become friends," Hayok explained. "But most importantly, one that truly cares about protecting others." Elder Sunmi nodded slowly. "We have the knowledge, we have the technology, and we have the need." She looked around the room again. "The question is, do we have the courage to try?" The debate went on for hours. Some worried about playing with the natural order of life. Others feared what might happen if their created species turned out to be dangerous instead of peaceful. But the red lights on the screen kept blinking, showing more and more conflicts starting across the galaxy. Finally, Elder Sunmei called for a vote. "All those who agree to begin the Terra Project, raise your hands." One by one, hands and tentacles and claws rose into the air. Even those who had been against the idea could see that they had no choice. The galaxy was heading toward the biggest war it had ever seen. "The vote is unanimous," Elder Sunmi announced. "We will begin immediately. Dr. Hayok, you will lead the project. Find the perfect world. Create the perfect species. And may the stars help us all." As the council members left the chamber, Jiwan stayed behind, still staring at the image of the blue and green planet. She wondered if they were doing the right thing. Creating life was something that had never been tried before. But as another red light appeared on the screen, showing another conflict starting somewhere in the galaxy, she knew they had to try. The fate of the galaxy now rested on their ability to create something that had never existed before, a species that could bring peace to a universe determined to destroy itself. The Terra project had begun. The planet hung in space like a blue and white jewel. No one had ever wanted it before because it seemed so ordinary. The yellow sun was not special. The solar system had no rare metals or valuable gases. It was the perfect place to hide their secret. Dr. Hayek pressed his face against the cold glass of the space station window. Far below, he could see the first early humans walking across the green lands. They looked so small from space, but they were the galaxy's greatest hope. "The air is just right," said Dr. Soman, looking at her computer screen. She was watching numbers that told her about the planet's atmosphere. There's enough oxygen to help their brains grow bigger and smarter. The seasons change in ways that will make them work together to survive. Next to her, Dongman was watching the early human settlements through powerful cameras. His job was to track how the humans lived and grew. The people in the north are already sharing food with each other. The southern groups are making art on cave walls. He smiled big. Our plan is working. But the most important person was Jinwoo. His job was to help shape how the humans would think and act. He was very careful about how he did this. He would cause small earthquakes that forced tribes to help each other. He would make sure that cave paintings appeared that showed people working together. He would create situations where cooperation worked better than fighting. "Look at this," Jinwoo said excitedly, pointing to his screen. It showed an early human village. They're not just staying alive, they're doing really well. And the best part is they're doing it as a team. The humans were learning fast. First, they figured out how to grow food instead of just hunting for it. Then they created languages to talk to each other. After that, they invented writing so they could save their ideas for the future. Everything they made seemed to celebrate working together and helping each other. They drew pictures that showed people joining hands. They told stories about heroes who brought peace between fighting groups. Each new generation of humans seemed to be better at solving problems without violence than their parents had been. "They're exactly what we wanted," Salmon said, watching her screens. Two groups of humans who had been fighting over land had just decided to merge into one bigger, stronger tribe.
Ow.
They're natural peacemakers. But Dr. Hayek saw something else. In the data that made him feel both happy and worried at the same time. The humans were peaceful, yes, but they were also something more. When someone threatened a human, the others didn't just try to talk their way out of trouble. They became fierce protectors. He watched one incident where a dangerous animal attacked a human child. The other humans didn't run away or just try to scare the animal off. They worked together like a perfect team to kill the threat and save the child. Their coordination was amazing. Their determination was absolute. "They're not just learning to be peaceful," he said quietly to himself. "They're learning to fight for peace." This worried him because it wasn't exactly what the council had planned. They wanted to create a species that would always choose talking over fighting. But these humans were different. They would talk first, yes, but if talking didn't work and someone was in danger, they would fight with everything they had. Dr. Salman noticed his worried expression. "Is something wrong?" "Look at this data," he said, showing her the incident with the animal attack. "See how they responded? They didn't just defend themselves. They completely eliminated the threat to protect the child." Salman studied the information. "That's actually impressive. They're not just peaceful, they're protective." "But is that what we wanted?" Dr. Hayek asked. Jinwoo overheard their conversation and came over to look. "Maybe it's better than what we wanted," he said thoughtfully. "A species that only knows how to talk might not survive in a galaxy full of warlike races, but a species that chooses peace but can fight when they have to. That might be exactly what the galaxy needs." The months passed and the humans continued to develop. They built cities, created art, and developed technologies. But they also created something else, a culture that valued protecting others above everything else. They would share their last piece of food with a stranger. They would risk their lives to save someone they had never met. They would forgive enemies who had hurt them, but they would never forgive enemies who hurt the innocent. "They're becoming something we never expected," Dr. Hayek said one day, as he watched a human rescue team save people from a flood. "They're not just peacekeepers, they're peace warriors. The other scientists gathered around to watch. The humans were working together with incredible efficiency. They had boats, ropes, and plans. They saved every person they could find, and then they stayed to help rebuild the damaged village. Maybe, said Dr. Soman softly, we created something better than perfect peacekeepers. Maybe we created perfect protectors. Dr. Hayok nodded, but he still felt worried. The galaxy was full of dangerous species. When these humans finally reached the stars, would their protective instincts make them the saviors of the galaxy? Or would it make them something else entirely? Only time would tell. The alarm sounds filled the council chamber like screaming metal. Elder Sunmi's face looked older than her 1,000 years as she stared at the battle reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Her hands, which never shook, even in the worst of times, were trembling now. Out of time, she said, her voice breaking the heavy silence. The room was packed with council members who had rushed in from across the galaxy. The Terra Project must go faster. Much faster. The reports were terrible. The hegemony wars had started in the far edge of the galaxy, but they were spreading. Like fire, 3 entire species had been wiped out completely. Billions of lives lost. Whole worlds turned to ash and empty space. Dr. Hayok felt sick as he looked at the numbers. The humans have only just learned how to work with metal. They're still hitting rocks together to make tools. They need at least another 1,000 years before they can build ships that travel between stars. We don't have 1,000 years, Juan said, her scaled face grim with worry. At this rate, the whole galaxy will be dead before then. The council. Members looked at each other with fear in their eyes. Some had lived through wars before, but nothing like this. The hegemony wars were different. The attacking forces didn't just want to conquer. They wanted to destroy everything. What are our options? Asked another council member. Dr. Hayok pulled up charts showing human development. We could try to speed up their growth, but it's very dangerous. If we push too hard, we might break. Their peaceful nature. If we don't push hard enough, they won't be ready in time. How would we do it? Elder Sumi asked. Engineer Kyung stepped forward. He was the one who designed the systems that could change planets from space. We would have to create problems for them to solve, big problems that force them to invent new things quickly. What kind of problems? Jiwan wanted to know. Kung pulled up a map of Earth. We could change the weather in some places, making it harder to grow food. This would force them to invent better farming methods. We could make some resources harder to find, so they would have to create trade networks between different groups. We could even create small conflicts that would make them develop better ways to solve disputes. Dr. Hayok looked worried. But what if this changes who they are? What if making life harder makes them more violent instead of smarter? It's a risk, Kyung admitted. But if we do nothing, there won't be anyone left to save. The debate went on for hours. Some council members thought it was too dangerous to interfere more than they already had. Others believed they had no choice. The war reports kept coming in, each one worse than the last. Finally, Elder Sunmi made the decision. We will proceed. But we must be very careful. We want to challenge them, not break them. Kyung began his work immediately. First, he started changing the climate in different parts of Earth. Some areas became colder, others became drier. The humans would have to learn to adapt or die. The results were amazing. Instead of fighting over the remaining good land, most human groups chose to work together. They shared knowledge about new farming techniques. They developed ways to store food for bad seasons. They created tools to help them survive in harsh conditions. Look at this, Dr. Soman said, pointing to her monitors. The northern tribes just invented a new way to preserve meat. They're sharing the technique with 3 other groups. But Kyung wasn't finished. Next, he made certain valuable resources harder to find. Metal ores became scarce in some areas, but abundant in others. This forced different human groups to trade with each other over long distances. The humans responded by creating the first trade routes. They built boats to cross rivers and oceans. They developed systems of weights and measures so they could trade fairly. Most importantly, they created the first diplomatic protocols for dealing with strangers peacefully. Not just surviving these challenges, Ginwu observed. They're using them as opportunities to become more connected. Was the most dangerous? Kuhn created situations where different human groups would compete for resources. But he was very careful to make sure the competition wouldn't lead to total war. The humans surprised everyone. When faced with competition, they often chose to merge groups instead of fighting. When they did fight, they created rules to limit the damage, developed concepts of honor that protected the innocent. They invented ways to end conflicts, quickly and fairly. It's working better than we hoped, Kuhn reported, after a year of acceleration. They're developing technology at 10 times the normal rate, but they're keeping their cooperative nature. Dr. Hayek watched the data with amazement and growing concern. They're not just learning faster, they're learning to be more protective. Every challenge we give them makes them more determined to protect each other. The humans were developing weapons, yes, but they used them to defend their communities, not to attack others. They were becoming traders and diplomats, but they were also becoming warriors who fought only to protect the innocent. We wanted to create peacekeepers, Dr. Hayek said quietly, but I think we're creating something much more powerful. We're creating a species that will fight to protect peace itself. The question was, would they be ready in time? The war had been going on for 3 terrible years. Every day brought news of more worlds burning, more species dying, more hope disappearing from the galaxy. Elder Sunmei had stopped sleeping well. The weight of all those lost lives pressed down on her like a mountain. Then the impossible happened. Elder Sunmei, you need to see this right now, called out the sensor operator, his voice shaking with excitement and fear. The long-range detection systems were showing something that shouldn't exist. Elder Sunmei rushed to the control room, her ancient feet moving faster than they had in decades. On the main screen, she saw signals that made her heart stop. Ships were traveling faster than light, and they were coming from the Terra system. How is this possible? She demanded, staring at the readings that couldn't be real. They shouldn't have achieved faster than light travel for another 50 years. Dr. Hayek was already at his computer, his fingers flying over the controls as he tried to understand what he was seeing. They've done something we've never seen before. Instead of using the same theories that every other species uses, they've created completely new ways to bend space and time. The numbers on his screen were incredible. The humans had not just achieved faster than light travel. They had made it work better than any other species in the galaxy. Their ships were faster, more efficient, and used less energy than anything the Council had ever built. Where are they going? Juan asked, fear creeping into her voice. The answer came from Communications Officer Minsu, who was tracking the human ships. They're not coming here to the research station. They're going to the Kepler system. Everyone in the room fell silent. The Kepler system was a nightmare. The Vorthok had been attacking it for months, killing every civilian they could find. Millions of innocent people were dying, and no one had been able to stop it. What are they doing there? Elder Sunmei whispered. The answer came through the communication system. A human voice, clear and strong, speaking in the common galactic language. This is Captain Day of the Earth vessel Harmony. We're here to help, all civilian. Ships move to coordinates we're transmitting. We'll cover your evacuation. The room erupted in shocked voices. The humans weren't asking for permission. They weren't asking what they should do. They were just helping. Minsu's hands flew over his controls as he tried to get a clear picture of what was happening. The human fleet is small, only 12 ships. But they're moving into position between the Vorthok attackers and the civilian evacuation ships. They're going to get themselves killed, Dr. Hayek said, his voice full of worry. The Vorthok have 100 ships in that system. But what happened next amazed everyone. The human ships didn't just throw themselves at the enemy. They moved like dancers, each ship knowing exactly where the others were and what they were doing. They used tactics that no one had ever seen before. Look at this, Minsu said, pointing to his screen. They're not trying to destroy the Vorthok fleet. They're creating a corridor for the civilians to escape through. The human ships worked together, like parts of a single mind. When one ship was damaged, 2 others moved to protect it. When the Vorthok tried to break through their lines, the humans adapted instantly. They fought with a combination of incredible skill and absolute determination. They're saving thousands of people, Juan said, watching the evacuation ships escape. To safety? But how are they doing it? Dr. Hayek was analyzing the battle data. They're not just good at fighting. They're good at everything. Their ships are more advanced than ours. Their tactics are better than anything we've seen. Their coordination is perfect. But the most amazing thing was still to come. After the civilians were safe, the human ships didn't retreat. Instead, Captain Day sent another message to the Vorthok forces. Your fight is not with the innocent. If you want to fight, fight us. But the killing of civilians ends now. The Vorthok, who had never backed down from any fight, actually paused. They had expected the humans to run away after saving the civilians. Instead, the humans were offering to fight them directly. They're not just protecting people, Elder Sunmi realized. They're challenging the attackers to face them instead of targeting the weak. The battle that followed was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The humans fought with incredible skill, but they also fought with something more. They fought with the absolute belief that protecting innocent people was worth any sacrifice. When it was over, the Vorthok fleet was defeated, but the human ships were badly damaged. Captain Day sent one final message. Kepler's system is secure. Civilian evacuation complete. We'll stay to help with rebuilding. The communication room was dead silent. Everyone was trying to understand what they had just witnessed. We wanted to create peacekeepers, Dr. Hayok said quietly, but we created something else. We created a species that doesn't just want peace. They're willing to fight for it. Elder Sunmi stared at the screen, showing the human ships helping to rebuild the damaged space stations. They're not our creation anymore, she said. There's something entirely new. The question was, what would the galaxy do with these unexpected protectors? The war didn't end with a big ceremony or a peace treaty signed by important leaders. Instead, it ended quietly, one world at a time. As human ships appeared wherever there was suffering and began to help, Ambassador Hannah stood on the observation deck of a space station, watching something that would have been impossible just months before. Below, on the planet's surface, humans were working side by side with Vorthok soldiers to rebuild a city that had been destroyed in the fighting. The same Vorthok who had been killing civilians were now helping to build new homes for the families they had once attacked. How did you do it? Asked Elder Sunmi, who had come to see this miracle for herself. How did you convince them to stop fighting and start building? Hannah smiled, but her eyes looked tired. She had been working for weeks without rest, traveling from world to world, talking to enemies and trying to understand why they had started fighting in the first place. We didn't just ask them to stop fighting. We asked them why they started fighting. It turned out they were afraid of running, out of resources, afraid of being attacked, afraid of being forgotten. So what did you do? We helped them solve their real problems instead of just treating the symptoms, Hannah explained. The Vorthok were attacking because their home worlds were dying out. So we helped them find new places to live. The hegemony was expanding because they thought everyone else was planning to destroy them. So we created communication networks so they could talk to other species instead of just fearing them. Elder Sunmi watched a group of human engineers teaching former enemies how to build water purification systems. It's remarkable. We've accomplished what we spent centuries trying to achieve. But the peaceful rebuilding was interrupted when the galactic community demanded answers. Representatives from dozens of species wanted to know how humans had appeared so suddenly and become so powerful. They wanted to know if humans were a threat or a friend. The council had to make a choice. They could lie and pretend that humans had developed naturally, or they could tell the truth about the Terra Project. Either choice was dangerous. Dr. Hayok stood in the Great Assembly Hall, looking out at representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked like walking plants, and some were just energy beings floating in special containers. All of them were staring at him, waiting for answers. The humans were created by us, he said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. We designed them to be peacekeepers. We guided their evolution for thousands of years. We gave them the tools and the nature they needed to help end conflicts. Reaction was immediate and explosive. Some species jumped to their feet, angry that the council had manipulated the natural order. Others were amazed that such a thing was even possible. The noise was deafening as dozens of different languages mixed together in shouts of surprise, anger, and wonder. But then Ambassador Hannah stepped forward to speak, and the room slowly became quiet. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans themselves thought about being created rather than evolved naturally. "You created us to be peacekeepers," she said, her voice calm and clear. "You gave us the tools to become protectors. We're not angry that you guided our evolution. We're grateful for the opportunity to serve." She paused and looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from many different species. "But understand this, we choose our own path now. And that path is standing with those who need protection, negotiating with those who will listen, and yes, fighting those who prey on the innocent." Some of the representatives looked worried. A species that could fight as well as humans had proven they could, but chose when and how to fight, could be more dangerous than a species that was simply aggressive. "What do you want from us?" asked a representative from the Spiral Confederation. "Nothing," Hannah replied. "We don't want to rule you or control you. We want to help you solve your problems before they become wars. We want to protect those who can't protect themselves. We want to build a galaxy where everyone can live in peace. And if we refuse your help, then we'll respect your choice." Hannah said, "But if you attack innocent people, we'll stop you. If you try to destroy other species, we'll stand in your way. If you create suffering, we'll work to end it." The debate went on for days. Some species wanted to accept human help. Others were suspicious of beings who had been artificially created. Few were still angry at the Council for keeping the Terra Project secret. In the end, the vote was close. But the galaxy chose to accept humanity as an equal member of the galactic community. The humans were given full rights and responsibilities, just like every other species. Years later, Dr. Hayek looked back on the Terra Project and realized they had created something they never expected. They had set out to make perfect peacekeepers, but instead they had made something better. They had created a species that understood that peace wasn't just the absence of war. Peace was something worth protecting, something worth fighting for, something worth building together. The galaxy was still not perfect. There were still conflicts and problems, but now there was also hope, and that hope had a name: humanity.